Norbert's already touched on 3 of our presentation themes. He's touched on the paradigm shifts that you need to put in place to start to implement these common processes, and how these change the way that people think about the way they work. Thinking about reaching out and embracing your whole organisation is going to put some loads on your IT department that they may not be expecting. We can build lovely systems that provide browse video, but suddenly your IT department is going to be asked to support browsing video to all the desktops, even to the sales and accounting departments, so that they feel part of the organisation, and there may be some surprises buried in there. And touching on a subject that I think we're all aware of, the complexity of the audio, and how that gets repurposed as you go down through the different types of format, is a headache for a lot of us, and we will hear one practical example later on in the presentation of how that can be addressed. Now, as I've said, metadata is key to what we're going to talk about as the automatic repurposing, and at the end of the presentation we're going to hear from Grab Networks, who have tools that are designed to do specifically that, take metadata and then to automatically repurpose your content onto a very wide number of platforms. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to hear from them at the beginning of the presentation to describe some of those metadata items that they'll be interested in at the tail end, so we can think about them as we go down through the production process and think about where in the process we can gather them and pick them up, generating the least amount of work. So I'm going to ask Tom from Grab Networks to just give us an introduction to some of the metadata elements that he would like to see come out of this system at the tail end of the production process. Tom.
Thank you very much, Granby. So the challenge that you have these days is what Granby and Norbert outlined earlier. I need to get my content with as little manual labor as possible to all those new outlets that are popping up. Things like the iPlayer, things like YouTube, things like iTunes. And in order to do that, I need information. Otherwise, I need a person there that does that manually. So what do I need the information for? The first thing, of course, is as simple as, ideally, I've got enough metadata so that I know which outlets, which one of my distribution platforms a particular piece of content has to go to. If I can't make that decision, a person has to manually do that. Also, it is helpful to have data that helps me determine what processing, what type of automatic, call it post-processing, is necessary to the video in order to move it to one of those new media outlets. For example, I might want to have metadata because I need to segment the clip into different smaller pieces. My marketing department might tell me my content that's playing back on a video-on-demand IPTV platform needs a bumper at the beginning that promotes my new TV show. I might want to add overlays. In order to automate that and not go back into an editing suite again, I need enough metadata in order to be able to do that. Other information is just as simple as I need to know what are the formats, the bit rates, the aspect ratio of the content that I'm encoding, and basically drive the transcoder accordingly. And very important, most of those new media outlets, you don't only need to deliver the media file, you also need to provide an XML document that contains descriptive metadata for the consumer. Things like, what is the correct title of the information? What is the synopsis of it? If I go to a pay-per-view outlet, what is the cost of that? So all this information needs to be provided. And as Granby mentioned earlier, I do not want to have somebody to enter that data again because it exists already in the production workflow. So it's just a matter of aggregating it and making sure it's available. Where does this metadata exist? For example, I already have the rights and the deal metadata that exists in some database system that you have. And what can I do with that? Well, based on that, I can determine which outlet does the content go to, which platform am I publishing to, and also what are things like licensing windows. How long will the content be available on YouTube or iTunes? When will I have to pull it off because my rights to the content expire? There are databases that contain the source properties of the video. Asset management systems tell me this is high definition content, 16:9 aspect ratio, with Dolby E in the audio. That allows me to drive the transcoder accordingly, that it picks up the audio from the right location in my container format, that it maps the audio tracks correctly. I have EDL information, and that helps me automatically pick segmentation points of the content. If my video is formatted for broadcast use from ad break to ad break, I might have segmentation information that allows me to automatically stitch it back together for a video-on-demand platform where I obviously don't want any breaks in the middle. There is also time-based metadata, such as play-by-play information, for example, that I might have for a soccer game. When did the goal happen? At what time code did the goal happen? When was the corner kick? And similar information. Also subtitle information. That information can be used to provide a better experience when, for example, putting the content on your website. And, of course, there are cataloging systems that I can reach out to get the title as well as the synopsis of a particular piece of content. That helps me populate the guide, for example, the guide system on a set-top box when I pull up my IPTV video-on-demand content. And passing that information through the production process from the beginning just results in a smarter, less labor-intensive, more automatic production and publishing process at the tail end of the production pipeline.